All right, welcome back everybody from lunch. Everybody have a good lunch? Excellent, excellent. Thank you again to Wendy for organizing all of this and taking such good care of us. And who helped you?
Mike and Helen.
Mike and Helen. Thank you very much. All right, excellent. Helen is over here. Right, I was like, is that Mike's nickname? Right, always. Hey, whether we know it or not, we all have multiple personalities. You're ahead of the game if you know it. All right, guys. Well, welcome back. And here's what we're up to. We wrapped up, as you well remember, with a very entertaining section on open inquiry, which we consider a major foundation of everything we do. And it's also a major foundation of trust building, right? There's so many different benefits of open inquiry. We're now going to move into the world of trust building. We're going to do a little section before we do our first breakout, our first scenario practice. And you all remember empty the glass, right? And you could see just how the emptying the glass and the whole open inquiry in a situation that could be a major conflict where trust is lost or damaged, it really helps. Now, in the real world, some of you may have noticed that that may not be enough to get you there in a particular situation. And the situation is this. We call it trust recovery. Based on something either that you did, if you're the lead, or a choreo did, sometimes in the handoff, from sales to the BPC during the workshop to the engagement manager, somewhere along that line. And I know this rarely happens at a choreo, mostly other places, a ball gets dropped, okay? So trust recovery is important, and let's just be upfront about it when, for whatever reason, we actually drop the ball, okay? Now, sometimes it will help if the client thinks we dropped the ball, and we really didn't, and that's kind of the judgment call that we'll work ourselves through, because sometimes they feel like we blew it and we really didn't. So let's just say broadly, if the client feels like we blew it, the egg is on our face, we're going to want to do some trust recovery usually before we get into just emptying the glass and straight open inquiry. And it's about how we frame it, how we take responsibility, and it's kind of how we move through it to let them know everything's going to be okay. There's a reason I'm asking you questions. I'm not putting this all on you. And it's almost always the right thing to do if we actually did drop the ball somewhere. Something didn't go well on our side, okay? So what I want to do is walk you through a model, but I think what I want to ask you first is, what would be a good example of how and where that might predictably happen at a choreo in your business cycle? Kristen has put together a scenario for us on one of these situations that we'll do in the scenario practice, but I just kind of want to hear from the group. What would be a situation that you find yourself in that's kind of predictable? It happens, where we're likely to have missed a handoff, dropped the ball, been late, and the client's frustrated with it. They're upset. What would be? Give me a couple of those. Yeah.
When we have to change a resource out, a person out on a project.
Okay.
To do whatever.
Got it. So it was a resource that was committed to them, or promised to them, or projected for them. And you have to pull that resource out, maybe because of delays on their side, maybe some stuff they did, but at the end of the day, we're like, what happened to our person?
Right.
Is that right? Okay, great. I think that's a great example. How many people face that from time to time? You face that, you see that. Good. Let's get another one. What would be another one where we're going to have to recover some trust before we can go forward? Okay, I saw Brienne first, and I saw, I think it was Dale.
Maybe there have been past vendors or consultancies that have come in and
Got it.
been successful, and so the client has a history of bad relationships. And
Okay.
so they don't have any reason to think it's going to be different.
Got it.
This time.
Good. Okay. Yeah, so I think that is a great example of this is all client interpretation, right? I think it happens a lot. Now, in this one, you won't need to do this particular trust recovery model. We'll work on some other things to do. Because you don't need to take responsibility for that because you weren't involved. But I really hear you, and in fact, that's at the heart of one of the scenarios that was built. So I really hear you. That's a common situation, but it's really an interpretation on their side that they, put together out of their past experience and their selective perception. Good, Dale.
Toward the end of the build phase, and the customers got their hands on the product, and they started, kicking the tires, and they realized that's not what we expected to be delivered.
Right.
And so there ends up being this isn't what I wanted, and so there ends up being you didn't do what we asked you to.
Okay. And what would be Corio's responsibility for that? So if it's trust recovery, there's the world of interpretation where the client puts it on you even though you really don't have responsibility. What would be Corio's responsibility in that might have been dropped somewhere?
How it could have been dropped?
Yeah, where did Corio miss something that contributed to the end resolution? So the question is, where does the client have some reason to be frustrated with Corio in that?
Maybe not checking in more periodically
Right.
with the bills to make sure that things were going along.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's all right. Okay, good. Anybody have one more? Yes, Barbara.
When the customer believes that we've missed some key requirements, so the functionality they're expecting, or they said they're expecting, didn't show up, and
Right.
maybe they never made it clear to us, but in their mind, we missed the requirement.
Okay, got it. And in your mind, where, if anywhere, could Corio have done a better job? Like there's something to their frustration that we could have done that better.
Right. Well, I think that is part of the entire requirements gathering workshop and
Got
the
it.
readback of the stories.
Right.
And any ongoing grooming, once again, as Dale said, the checkpoints during the build to make sure that everything was being
Got it.
built to what they need. So I
Okay.
think there's a couple of different places where that
Got
could
it.
happen.
Okay.
But it also could be the client decided last minute they had a new requirement.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and you know, that's the thing here, right? Is as Marty covered with you, people are not very skilled at separating fact and interpretation in their own minds, right? So that gets all meshed together into their position, you know, which is some fact and lots of interpretation. So often the client would swear up and down, I'm frustrated because you guys, it's your fault, you guys did it, without recognizing their contribution and all of that. So the art of this is that with trust recovery, what we're going to show you here, where it works best, most, and is most appropriate is where we have some responsibility along the way. Clearly if we have all the responsibility, it's dead on. But if we have even some of the responsibility, this will help before we just go to straight inquiry. All right? So let me walk you through the model. It's just a one simple model, and then we'll break it down. So the idea of trust recovery is what we want to do with these 4 steps around the outside is send the message that we're taking ownership. Whatever is theirs that's ours, we're taking ownership for that. And we're going to help fix it, and we're reassuring everything is going to be okay. That's what's underneath this, is we're taking ownership for our part. I am your person, I am your lead, I am staying with you until this is fixed. And this is all going to get worked out. Everything's going to be okay. Okay? And you'll notice that inquiry is right at the center because you have options as to where you do inquiry. Okay? It's not always the same. So you might do inquiry right out of the gate, meaning the client is frustrated. Well, you guys missed requirements. You might need to do inquiry right out of the gate and empty the glass. Well, because you don't know. You're like, okay, I really understand you feel like we missed some requirements. Help me understand where you feel we missed. Okay, so you might have to do it right out of the gate to just even understand what they're talking about if it's not crystal clear. If there's clarity about the interpretation of where Corio missed something, then the first piece is we apologize if appropriate. Now, you may say, when is it appropriate? I think there is a hard rule and a soft rule. The hard rule is if this is clearly something we dropped the ball on, we're almost never going to go wrong, whether it was me or my team, to say, hey, I apologize. Okay, so if it was something that we would agree, we missed, we dropped the ball on, something that's on us, apologizing is a good first step to start rebuilding trust. It's not going to get us all the way there. It's not a free pass. What is the issue with apologizing? What is the issue with over-apologizing? Apologizing when it really had nothing to do with you?
Loses its impact.
It's what?
If you apologize for every action or perceived mistake you make, then the apology loses sincerity and its impact.
Okay. So first of all, I think yes, as a technique, it loses sincerity. It's not authentic, and it's like, oh, these guys just apologize whenever they start something. So it doesn't really mean anything. And okay, that's great. That's one. Okay, I'm going to go here and then here. Yes, sir.
Is it important, and maybe it's not, but accepting blame that isn't yours is probably not good because the client needs to be aware that
Right.
It's not your fault if it's not your fault.
That's right. Yeah, so I think this is the main one, right? Is that where you were going to? Yeah, exactly. You would say same thing? Yeah, it undermines your credibility. It begins to reinforce and validate the client's interpretation that Ikorio is not doing as good a job as we want them to do. Okay, so that's the downside. Is we're apologizing things that trouble we didn't cause. You know, it may help in the moment, but the unintended consequences starts to reinforce their case that they're building in their own mind, their own interpretation about how trustable Ikorio is, how responsible you are, how credible you are. That's the downside risk, right? So I think, you know, hard rule is almost always apologize if it really is our responsibility. There's very little to lose in that situation, and it actually builds trust and says, yeah, you know, I can trust them to own up to it when they had a piece of this. You know, almost always, if it's not our responsibility and they're trying to make it ours, it's not appropriate to apologize. And the soft rule, you got to feel it out. You know, every situation's a little different. You know, just trust your gut, trust your experience. And, you know, sometimes you break the rule and you just do it anyway because it's the right thing to do. Okay? So that's the first piece. Second, and I think this is what people are really looking up for up front, and the more frustrated they are, the more they want to see this before they're going to get into inquiry with you. Right? Because when people are really frustrated, what do they want? What do they want when they're really frustrated? Blood. Okay, they want blood. Kristen, there will be blood. It sounds like this is just theoretical, not something you've ever been through, right?
I report to her, so.
Ow, snap. There will be blood. Yeah, so on the personal side, I think you're right. Emotionally, we want, you know, it's sort of like emotionally, you know, people want somebody to pay, somebody to blame, somebody to pay for what happened, you know, the trouble that was caused to them. That's an emotional perspective. And then from a rational perspective, what do they want?
They want resolution on their terms.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they think they have the resolution of what they want it to be made right.
Right.
Which may not be reasonable, but
Right.
then it's rational.
Yeah, so sort of mix of rational and emotional is they want resolution on their terms. And if we can get them to full rational, they want resolution. And they want the right resolution, right? But, you know, as we know, getting them from the emotional perspective over to the logical, rational perspective takes some work. So these two steps here, take personal responsibility and commit to resolve, are designed to help that bridge, to reassure them, first of all, you know, I'm taking personal responsibility. So it might look like, you know, let's say this is something that happened in the workshop and now it's downstream. I wasn't even in the workshop, but now I'm running with it. Now these requirements are not right? And I know that we didn't show up in the workshop the way we had hoped to. You know, we might have not had continuation of our players. Something happened in the workshop. So I can take responsibility for Ikorio and go, you know, listen, Mike, I understand how upset you are. You know what, first of all, I want to apologize that, you know, we haven't done the job that we would like to do as well as we normally do it. And I want you to know that I'm taking personal responsibility for the Ikorio team's role in this right now. So you can work directly with me on fixing this, okay? So Mike is like, okay, Steve's not running and hiding. He's standing right here. He's my guy. And then commit to resolve is, and I'm going to stay with you until we get this resolved. I'm going to stay with you on this. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to work this out with you, and I'm going to get a successful resolution with you and see this through. So notice, did I make any specific promises at all about the solution? No. It's really important that when I'm committing to resolve, I'm committing to a successful resolution, and I'm going to be your partner, and you can work with me. I am not committing to any specific action, any specific step. This is about, I'm taking personal responsibility, you can work with me, and I'm going to stay with you to get the best resolution we can. You have to be really careful not to start making promises here. Why is that? What's the risk?
What's that?
Because the promise you make may not be realistic, and you'll be held to them to a great dissatisfaction
Right.
and a more open hostility.
That's Barbara. You've been at this for a while, right? Okay. So you went to a really good school. Yeah, School of Life. So, exactly. You know, what?
Is it Hard Knocks?
Hard Knocks, School of Hard Knocks. Yes, indeed. So, you know, sometimes it's seductive in the moment to look for the fastest way out and try to promise something. And we back ourselves or our team into a corner, and if that doesn't turn out to be the best answer, now we've promised them that, and if we're not going to do that, and we have to go back and say, well, actually, we're not going to do that, now what happens to the already damaged trust? Once again, crisis, danger, opportunity. We have an opportunity to fix this and build trust out of it, but the danger is we overcommit, we back ourselves into a corner, and it gets worse. So this is a crisis, okay? So this is the personal part. The last part is proposing a triage plan. And what I mean by a triage plan, you all probably understand triage in the medical field or the military, right? It's when if someone is extremely damaged physically, and we're not, you know, they're having a heart attack, we're not worried about how many years they're going to live, you know, and getting them exercising and eating well. We're not even worried about getting them to the hospital right now. We're worried about getting them to survive for the next 30 minutes. So triage is everything else is out of the way except for what we need to do to save the patient. We're focused on what do we need to do right here, right now as the next steps to save the patient, which is a bridge probably to long-term saves, long-term trust recovery. So a triage plan is the top 1, 2, 3, 4 things we're going to do. It's not, I'm going to give you a 12-point plan right now. Okay, so you know, a triage plan would be, let's take this piece about, you know, we missed requirements. What might be a triage plan if I've basically done my inquiry to understand they feel we missed some requirements in the workshop. I've apologized for our role in that. Told them, look, I'm taking responsibility. I'm your guy on this. I'm committed to stay with you till we resolve this. This, by the way, is a great time now to do inquiry, to understand more about the situation. Anything we don't already know, this is a great time to go back to inquiry to understand their perspective and what we're really trying to solve here. And then my triage plan is sort of my action plan in the moment. Does that make sense? Okay. So what would be some things that might be in a triage plan where downstream the client's saying we missed some requirements and we know the workshop didn't go great. You know, we've done our apology, we've done our personal responsibility, we've committed to resolve. What might be some things that might be in the triage plan that would be important out of the gate?
Whether or not it's a deal breaker for go live, or if you could convince the customer to put it in the backlog for a later date.
Okay. Got it. So a decision about whether this needs to be go live or we put it in the backlog for a later date. Great. So if people agree that might be part of the triage plan, we'll have to figure out on each of these whether it's go live or backlog. Yeah? Okay, great. What else would be in that triage plan?
Reconfirm that we have the missed requirements at this point.
Right.
Have a meeting and review all the requirements to gather the missing ones.
Okay. So great. So let's get back together, reconfirm, validate the requirements, and get everybody to do that. So, okay, again, we're not going to set up the meeting right now, but we're going to say, okay, you know, we want to get everybody together to reconfirm the requirements. As part of that, we're going to decide whether it's backlog or whether it's go live. Great, good. Anything else we need in that triage plan?
Impact to the budget and schedule.
Okay. So say more about that, Marcy. Impact to the budget and schedule.
I mean, you know, doing those two steps that were described, which are appropriate. You know, depending on where we are in the project schedule and the budget to be able to understand, you know, will this adjust their go live date?
Got it.
You know, if this is really big misses of requirements, we may need 2 more weeks of development.
Got it.
And so needing to at least put it within that triage plan that we have to look at that together, right?
Right.
And what that means.
Great.
And then maybe you know, which opens kind of the can of worms of, so are we going to be asking for more money, or do
Right.
we have enough hours to cover all this? And
Right.
we won't know
Right.
during that time until we've gone through those steps.
Great, which is exactly why we don't want to get into that discussion now where they're still frustrated, right?
Yeah, but would it be unfair to say that we're not, I'm not ready to have that discussion, but wouldn't I want to set the stage that we have to have that
Yes.
discussion?
So in my view, let's take what we have. Let's use these three, right? So triage plan, from what I've heard, listen, Mike, so here's, based on what you've told me, our experience and what I've heard, what I would recommend is we get the right people from both sides back together to validate the requirements, number one. As part of that, we decide between backlog and go live, number two. The other thing we want to do as part of that meeting is decide, is look at budget impacts, schedule impacts, and how we keep both of these on a healthy trajectory. Is that? Yeah, so we're setting big pillars in place. We don't want to get bogged down in this conversation and trying to work any of them out, because it could blow, especially that one could blow everything back up right now. And we're trying to save the patient, get them to the hospital. Okay, make sense? All right, I'm going to take up to 1 minute of questions, or actually let's make this the last one, because otherwise Marty will physically pull me off the stage because we got to get into our first scenario breakout.
The question, I see proposed triage plan, is acceptance of that part of this process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good, it's sort of implied in this, yes.
Okay.
We want to propose and get it accepted. You're exactly right. Thanks for asking that, Dale. Yeah, getting it proposed and they go, well, hell no, that's not going to work. Well, we haven't really gotten there yet.
Okay.
Thank you for calling that out.
Yeah, I was unsure.
Yeah, all right. Good. Here's where I want to start. So what I'm going to teach you is something we call the strategic trust scale. And the way you can think of this is, if it's unconscious for people, which it is for most people, these are perspectives people have on trust. In essence, they're glasses they look through, right? We've talked about interpretation. These are the interpretation glasses people are looking through around trust. If it's conscious, you can think of them as trust strategies. So to the degree you can be conscious of what you're trying to do, it moves from being an unconscious, there's some unconscious glasses that I look through, to being conscious strategies of understanding, okay, here's where my client is, here's where I want to be. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build into giving you 4 stages, which you can see in your book. This is one of those builds we talked about, of 4 different perspectives that people will take on the relationship about trust. 4 different strategies they might take. So the first question at the very beginning is, and I think you guys will probably get this one, is trust built more easily in a climate of fear or a climate of possibility? Yeah, does everybody get that? It's situational. On the one hand, we are who we are, and it's not. A lot of people will say it all depends. It's all situational. Okay, you have no role in this. It's just a situation you walked into. It has nothing to do with you. And what I'm going to suggest is, to a large degree, it's who we are and who our client is, but it's also situational. And one big thing to understand is, are we in a climate of possibility? Things are rolling forward, people are excited, people are building, it's a stimulus environment, things are going up. Or are we on the way down? We're in an austerity environment, we're fighting for our lives, we're trying to turn the company around. Big play on the degree to which people feel more or less trusting, okay? And to some degree that will affect everybody with how they naturally like to play. So that said, we'll start building this out. So what I'm going to cover along this spectrum are 4 core trust strategies. And we're going to continue with that sort of, legal model like a jury, just because it's useful to think about these 4 perspectives. We're going to build deep doubt, shallow trust, deep trust, okay? So deep doubt is you're always guilty even when you're innocent. So remember, this is an interpretation. It's not reality. Even though the person may think it's a fact, you're always guilty even when you're innocent. Even if everything you're doing looks like it's, beneficial for the partnership, all good, I know you're going to drop the ball soon. Why? I've worked with consultants before. They've been in here. They all promised me great things, and look what happened. I got totally screwed over, Or you just can't trust people. The world's a dangerous place. You got to keep your cards close. You got to control everything you possibly can. You cannot count on people. All right? So the perspective of deep doubt is I'm entrenched on, if I trust you, I'm going to get screwed. That's just the way it is. So what I need to do is I need to battle you every step of the way, make sure you take every bit of blame for everything that goes wrong. Really delightful people to work with. I'm really my favorite, you know. Who wouldn't want to work with these people, right? It's a joy, a delight. Let's do some more. Okay? Let's be friends. Let's come on over for dinner, right? Let's hang out, right? It's all good. Sometimes I use the example, Wimbledon's going on right now, and, the big story these days is, Nadal and Federer, both making their big comebacks, which is awesome. I'm going to reach a little farther back to a guy many of you are probably aware of. Some of you may have watched growing up. You guys remember a guy named John McEnroe? Yeah, what was Mac known for? Arguing with who?
With the umpire.
Yeah, he didn't even bother with the other player, right? He didn't care about them. He wanted to argue with the umpire, right?
Worst umpire, and this is clearly in.
Absolutely. So, McEnroe never saw a call from an umpire that went against him that he agreed with, right? He's going to battle everything, You guys probably remember these things. He charges to center court, and he's yelling at the umpire and waving his arms. The other guy's like, nah, I'm going to let you guys hash it out, right? Staying out of this, right? Now, here's the funny thing. Again, we talked about it being situational. So, as some of you may know, and it's not like I watch a lot of sports, but a few years back, I was watching US Open, and 10 years back, I'm like, oh, that's John McEnroe, because he's the announcer now, right? He announces a lot of these matches. So there's McEnroe. He hasn't been on the court in 15 years or something. And, two of these young players, they get into one of these calls, It's a close call. The umpire, calls it out. It was a little bit long. And, the guy who lost the call, he hit it out. He, of course, gets pretty quickly up to the umpire's stand, and he makes his play. And the umpire's like, no, it was out. Well, to McEnroe's shock, the guy goes, okay. And he walks back. He's ready to play. Everybody else is ready to move on, but not McEnroe. He's not even in the match. He's the announcer. McEnroe's upset. He turns to his co-announcer and says, Bob, I got to tell you, that's the problem with these young players today. They think these calls even out, but they don't. You got to battle for these things. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you John McEnroe, deeped out. That's how it rolls. That's how it rolls. If you don't fight for it and battle it for it, they're going to take it away from you. Now, the good news, how many people have come across this in business? Okay, yeah, because it's out there, right? So that's the bad news, it's out there. I think the good news is more and more, with the exception of some particular places and companies where people are paid to do it, like procurement. Always a delight to work with procurement. They're like, you guys, they look for people who are deeped out. They teach them to be deeped out. It's going to be rough. And there are particular cultures, exactly, right? There's some, you have some in mind? Yeah, cool. Because it's on video. Keep the cards close. Yeah, they're out there, right? So at the end of the day, the good news is I think there's less of that than there used to be, okay? So let's move up to the next one. And we're going to talk about at the end what you do about all this. I want to kind of paint the picture, and we'll talk to what to do about it. The next one up is called shallow doubt. So shallow doubt is basically you're guilty till proven innocent. Does that make sense? You're guilty till proven innocent. So how do you prove yourself innocent? If I'm coming in, I'm not just going to trust you. I wasn't born yesterday. I know how the world works. How do you prove your innocence? What do you have to do? Okay, so it'll vary for different people, but perform, hit all your targets. On the business side, perform, hit all your targets, absolutely.
You have to do like endless status reports.
Okay, by the way you're sitting and the look on your face, you've apparently been through this. Right. No, it was all good, I loved it. You're like, you got to do endless status reports. I get it.
Time reporting status than doing work.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Maybe transparency and communication fall into that then.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So at the end of the day, right? It may require lots of status. There's a lot of I'm going to hold you accountable, right? There's a lot of I'm looking over your shoulder, holding you accountable. I'm not going to let you guys do anything that I don't control till you've proven yourself, right? I'm not just going to give it to you, right? And the other thing is, in addition to the whole business side, every step along the way, whatever you tell me you're going to do, you damn well better do it. Whatever you said you're going to do, you damn well better do it if I'm going to ever trust you. So it's a very rigorous level of accountability and a level of whatever you said you're going to do, you better follow through, right? So it's tough. It's hard to get through guilty till proven innocent, but it's doable. Deep doubt, almost impossible. Shallow doubt, very workable, but that look of exhaustion you had with the status reports is how it is, right? But it's doable. So when we get there, we'll talk about how do we move up. All right, next one is much more fun. This is called shallow trust. Okay, so shallow trust is the opposite of shallow doubt. It's innocent till proven guilty, right? So how would you prove yourself guilty? If someone has shallow trust, I'm going to trust you until what? Okay, so Mike says it's until you screw up. And what would a screw up look like? What sort of?
Missing your deliverables or other commitments that you made.
Okay, so you missed a formal deliverable, you missed a commitment that you made. Great. In any way, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. With someone in shallow trust, do you lose it all at once, or do you lose it a piece at a time? I agree with Mike. It depends. More likely a piece at a time. But there are people that they're hanging on by a thin thread. Like they probably started as deep doubt or shallow doubt, and they learned to be shallow trust. But they're only one step away. They're hanging by a very thin thread.
But you could go from trust to shallow trust. It's like, I'm going to give you another chance.
Right.
Everyone has a bad day. Everyone can miss something,
Right.
falls through the cracks. But if you do it too frequently,
Right.
you're in shallow doubt.
Exactly. Yeah, we sometimes talk about, again, there's a lot of it depends, but trying to understand who you're working with. You guys know the thing they do in a lot of the criminal justice about the 3 strikes and you're out, when you've had 3 crimes. So yeah, some people are like, 1 strike, you're out. I grew up in deep doubt, I'm going right back there. Other people, it's like, you'll ask them, I'll give you 2 chances. 2 chances. After 2, And other people, 3 strikes and you're out. Other people don't know. They just, I'll know it when I see it, right? And it's sort of a slow bleed. The point of the story is you have some degree of vulnerability at all of these. There's a path into deep doubt from any of these 3 places. The only one that we'll talk about in a moment that does not drop down there is deep trust. Before I move to deep trust, I want to tell you a story, a true story to illustrate some of this. So many years ago, back when we were doing a lot of work with Accenture that I told you about this morning, I was telling whatever story we told way back then, when we were doing this, and he said, you know what? That's a great story. I got a better one. He said, he's like, swear to God, true story. Check it out. Let me know what you think. So here's the story he told me. So his client was a British CEO, big major company in the UK, British CEO, and this was in the late '80s. And the Brit, he comes over to a major business conference in New York, and at the time, some of you again may have been alive in the '80s, may remember the '80s. Running was a pretty big thing then. Now people are CrossFitting and cross-training and Pilates and doing all their thing and yoga. But, running was kind of the thing, in the 80s along with aerobics because it was all no pain, no gain. Got to beat ourselves up and get stronger. So he was a runner. And I don't know if you know many runners. I used to be a runner. Now I do other stuff, but runners like to run, Like they're not just going to stop running just because I'm on the road. I'm going to bring my shoes and I'm going to find a place to run and I'm going to run. So he comes to the conference and, if you've been to New York, what's the best place to run in New York if you want? Central Park. True, however, was a little different back in the 80s. Central Park had a little crime problem in the 80s. So, he got there thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to go run, no problem. And then, concierge, and locals, people who live there like, I don't know about running in Central Park. So he and some other runners, they got together and they basically said, well, you know what, if we run as a group, we should be all right, what's the likelihood 10 of us are running, people will find an easier target, right? So what would you say his perspective was? When he first arrived, where was he sitting on Central Park? Yeah, so he went in, I would say he's not at deep trust because I haven't taught you about that. He's not at deep trust. He's not at deep trust because I haven't taught you about that yet. There's no other reason. No, he's not at deep trust because deep trust gets built over time. That's why it's strong. It gets built over time and experience. So from where I sit, what we call shallow trust is really the best place you can be without personal deep experience of it. So he's at shallow trust. It's like, hey, it's innocent until proven guilty. What do I know? I've never been there. Okay, then he gets there, and what does he find out? Yeah, finds out not safe place, high crime. So where does he go in his mind? Yeah, so now he goes into shallow doubt, and then the runners get together and say, we could run as a group. So now where does he go to? Back to shallow trust. Okay, yeah, I'm at shallow doubt. So notice between shallow trust and shallow doubt can be fluid. If you have the right safety, security reasons backup, you can move. So great, now he's over in shallow trust, and they do it. And basically they go out as a group, and there's like 10 of them, and they run through the park, and they get through 3 days. Not an incident, all good. However, conference ends on the 3rd day. Everybody else takes off. He's got business meetings because he's in New York. He's a runner. What do runners want to do? They want to run. And they want to run every day, most of them. So he's like, all right, well, I haven't seen any crime. I haven't heard of any crime. Nothing happened. I know it's just me. But, I think it's going to be okay. Where's he sitting now? He's still shallow trust. He built some trust. He didn't see anything happen, didn't hear about anything. I've been in the park. I think it's okay. All right, so now he goes out, and he's ready to run, okay? So he goes out there, and he's running through the park. And, like most of us do if we're working out, he's not thinking about running. He's thinking about his business meetings and his day. And he comes around kind of a blind corner, and he's running this way. And he just kind of hits shoulders with a guy, and they bump each other and kind of get stuck and, kind of work their way around each other. And, the guy's like a big guy with a red sweatsuit, and he's kind of knocked off balance. And he's a Brit, so he apologizes right away. Oh, so sorry. And so, he's like, all right, keeps going, thinking about his day. And then he's kind of like, Central Park, what did I hear about? He's like, wait a second. So, he's like, oh, what? Maybe that wasn't so innocent. And, he reaches into his little running pocket to see if his key is there, and the key is gone. Lost his key. So now he's like, where does he go? Where does he go to now? Yeah, he goes back to shallow doubt, maybe even deep doubt, because now he's panicked, and the key was there, and now it's gone. So he's like, oh, man. And, he thinks, what am I going to do? He's a smart guy, and he's like, okay, I can see the hotel from here. And he's thinking, if this guy has my key, and this is back in the day when they had the room numbers on the keys, 80s, room number on, here's the hotel, there's a room number, knock yourself out, take anything you like. And he's like, I got to beat this guy back to the hotel, but then he sees the guy. He can see across the park. The guy's not running that fast. He can see him, and he makes a crazy call. He says, I'm going to go get the guy. So he basically cuts across the middle at a particular part of the park, books his way over, and the guys, you can see the guy coming. He gets behind a bush. True story. He's down behind the bush. Heart rate's going, pulse is pounding. He's scared, excited. The guy comes running by, and he just charges out I think he might even play a little rugby. He just charges out and boom, hits the guy, hammers him down into the ground. Gets on top of the guy, goes, give me the key, give me the key, give me the damn key. The guy surrenders. And hands him the key, Mike. Nice try. The guy surrenders, hands him the key. But stay tuned. All right, so hits the guy, gets the key, gets up, and at this point the run is over. He's just, he's gotten his workout, he's excited. He's headed back to the hotel as fast as he can. So he gets his way back to the hotel, gets up to his room to make his glorious entry, puts the key in the door. Doesn't work, wrong key. And so but he still is like, what the heck, maybe it demagnetized, So he gets help from the front desk, and they come open the door, and he looks in his room, and right on his desk, what does he see? He sees his key sitting on the desk. And a terrible realization hits him like a lightning bolt, and he realizes in all likelihood he's the first Brit to ever mug a New Yorker in Central Park. He has now broken foreign relations between the States and the UK. It's all over. So notice, this is an inner game. We can be fluid between these, and different things change our perspectives We're not in a truly safe place until we get to deep trust, because this is all fluid, and even at shallow trust, it's still fragile. Things can move rapidly down depending on the circumstances.